Welcome to Alex and Annie, the real women of vacation rentals. I'm Alex.
And I'm Annie.
And today we are diving into a topic that we have kind of teased up a little bit so far on the show. And Annie and I are very excited to dive into it. Destination marketing. We've got a true destination marketing expert with us today. We have Jennifer Barbee, who is the CEO and founder of Destination Innovate. Jennifer, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you guys today. I love your podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
We got the three blondies, if anybody's watching on YouTube. It's not Simon, but Jennifer today. Thank you so much for joining us. And, as I mentioned, this is a topic that Annie and I are very interested in, and we're trying to figure out ways that we can connect the dots between, the destination marketing organizations and different locations and vacation rental businesses, because I'm sure, as you've seen, vacation rentals really saved a lot of destinations in the last couple of years. I mean, the popularity just through the roof.
Right. Absolutely. And I think destinations are just really embracing and recognizing that, because before, vacation rentals weren't, with the bed tax issues before. And then when bed tax got worked out, still the hoteliers are usually sitting on their board. They've been a slave to that one segment of hospitality for so long, and really embracing vacation rentals. You're right about definitely save them through that time, but also, just with the trends moving about remote workforce and people working from anywhere, vacation rentals are continuing to be a primary need for destinations to embrace.
Yes, it's exciting to see. And Alex and I talked about it with a lot of people, that people are like, this whole business is new. And we're like, no, this has been around literally for hundreds of years. But I've been in it since the late 90s, 2000. So it's been around for a long time. And to finally see people recognize it. I hate that it took Corona to do that, but it certainly was a blessing for our industry. But before we dive in too deeply, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your genesis through the industry and how you got to be where you are, what drew you to hospitality. I noticed in looking at your background that you had gotten a degree in cultural anthropology. So I had to look that up because I had no idea what that was. It sounded very fascinating. So what I would throw at you to start is this where you thought you would be with that degree?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm a child of the 80s. I'm a Gen Xer. So for me, I just got pulled into history from just the more like the salacious and the fun of it. And I thought I was going to be Indiana Jane. I actually started in archaeology.
Really?
Wow. Because I realized you aren't Indiana Jones. You're digging in the dirt the whole time. And I'm a girly girl from Texas. I don't want my nails dirty. Switched to cultural anthropology, but actually I started in the tourism industry before I even got into college. Okay. I just happened to be one of those people who was a nerd, got my first TRS-80 color computer in 1984.
Wow.
I remember that.
And really just kind of taught myself how to code in BASIC. And by the time that came around, advertising agencies were moving from, the light box print to digital graphic designing and things like that. And I just happened to have a relative who knew somebody who had an agency who hired me part-time to do a little bit of computer work, did that for a while. And I actually first did that for Guest Quarters. I don't know if you guys remember who that was, because they're not there anymore, but they were a big hotel group out of Houston. Okay. So that was my first purview of that. When I was in college, I kind of got called back and was doing both at the same time to build websites, because that's when websites started coming out. So I actually started as a programmer, and my very first website was Las Vegas.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
That's
thankfully,
amazing.
I will say thankfully not alone, definitely a team, but that was one of the first projects I worked on.
Yeah.
My first move into DMOs. And it was great because I got to have experience with big ad agencies like R&R Partners. I was there when they did What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas. So
really,
wow, I got a front row seat to things that people just didn't see at that age.
Wow. And
it just propelled me to move more into the destination world. The agency I was working for at the time was really the only agency catering to digital and destinations. So I just kind of rode that up and, got my way in the industry, really got intimate with DMOs and the digital space. Left that agency in 2006. And since then have been on my own. I've worked with a little over 400 destinations and travel industry kind of clients. So a little bit of everything, I guess. I don't want to say a master of any, pretty much a good jack of all trades.
Wow. Wow. It's amazing to me. I mean, the destination marketing umbrella, it's a small industry, even though it's vast, it's small at the same time. And I feel like whenever I go to any of these events, it's like everybody knows each other, like that core group that works at the, CVB DMO level nationwide. It's a great atmosphere, and that's awesome. I didn't know that was your background at that point, but very
No,
interesting.
it's a great community, and really the testament to my longevity in this industry has been having those relationships. That's definitely the reason that I've been here 30 years.
Yeah. Interesting.
And that's one thing that we talk about, that the common thread, I think, through hospitality as a whole, whether it be DMO or hotels or vacation rentals, is it's the relationships. Those relationships foster business relationships, would foster business growth. And really, I think those of us that have been in any segment for a long time, it really goes back to those relationships. And for me, that's how we got you on the show. Is I had a relationship with you from way back in the day when you were working with the Panama City Beach CVB. So I love that you have these relationships that have kept you going too.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. I did have a question actually related to that, kind of going through where your career went. So we met, and again, I don't want to put a date on it because it just dates us. I mean, not that you didn't date us with the computer reference there, but so I was on the marketing committee for the Panama City Beach CVB, and you were doing a lot of their digital media. And I think that was about the time when digital media just was really coming to the forefront of what
it really was.
Destinations really needed to do. And I do remember sometimes when you would come in and we were like, what is all this stuff? Like, this is crazy. We don't understand any of this. I was still working on like my flip phone, so it was like, I think just how that has evolved. I think, how do you see the evolution of digital media, where it is today, and how do you help your partners kind of, I want to say, cut through the noise, but there's so much that's going on digitally from social media, video, audio, everything. How do you help them navigate that?
Well, I think it all comes around the idea, and I will date us here because that was 2008.
Oh,
and what you guys thought
that sounds about right.
What you guys thought was crazy was the idea. So this comes to your answer here is, it's about the idea. Like, how much further are you going to go down that path in your competition? And for PCB, we built the first personality-driven website in the destination industry.
I love that
crazy idea.
Website.
It was great though. It was so great.
Pre like Facebook quizzes, pre all of that.
Yeah.
You went in, you took your own quiz, and you were like a Sandy Bottom bunch, like a family, and the whole website changed.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was so much fun to work on with you, but it was at the time, it was like, wait a minute, how is this going to even work? How are people going to interact with this? It was really interesting.
I am used to being the crazy one. But that's to your question, that is what people have to do in digital now, because it's everywhere, and DMOs especially, and I'm sure vacation rental owners as well, get overwhelmed with the amount of platforms. Okay, now do we have to do TikTok? Now do we have to do this? What are we doing with Snapchat? Do we need to be on there? They're going a mile wide and an inch deep. And I think that is the threat and the worst strategy to have. I think the best thing is to go with the idea first, then choose the proper channel. I don't think you have to be everywhere. I wouldn't mind if a DMO or a vacation rental only had one social media profile.
Really?
If they did it right.
And just do it really well.
Yeah. It's when you said 2008, that just really hit a bell with me too. That 2008 is actually when I first came and was I was working in an advertising agency too, and came in to sell Condo World on some digital marketing things. And one of the things I was selling them on was handling PPC for them. And they hadn't done PPC to that point. And I remember Roy saying, nobody clicks on those ads. Like, I'm not spending money on that. That's ridiculous. And even if people did click on them, how do you know it's not your competition that's just over there just clicking away? But to your point, I mean, you're selling an idea, right? So I had to build that relationship with them and get them to understand, okay, if we want to move, or if you want to move into the digital era, you got to trust me that this is definitely something that I feel is going to strongly change the business for the best, and certainly did. And years later, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on pay-per-click, and it's the most amazing, expensive, but it's definitely the best ROI in terms of the advertising that we do. But yeah, I mean, from 2008, which was not that long ago, really, in the grand scheme of things, it's it feels like light years ago, but a lot has changed for sure.
It has, but that arc has been interesting too, because in the beginning, with the DMO, with the exception of the ones that our agency already had, like a Vegas, because they kind of get it, they're forward.
Yeah.
But most destinations, they didn't even want to pay for a website. So we'd have to go out to the stakeholders, to the hoteliers,
Yeah.
to the businesses to get them to buy in a little bit and fund it ourselves.
Yeah.
So we went out to fund at the beginning of my career to now people are just throwing and irresponsibly, to be honest with you, throwing money at digital without being strategic about it.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it's to your point. It's like, it's almost like FOMO, that they feel like they have to do everything or else they're not being good marketers. And it's like, you really don't. And it's unbelievable. Every time I go to our, CVB meetings, there's always something new that we're doing or we're looking at. And there's so many different vendors in it. And it's some of the things are different than what we use here at Condo World. So a lot of it, I kind of feel like I'm in that boat that I'm like, whoa, this is different stuff that I'm not used to too. And, you really have to use your best judgment and discernment to, that's one of Amber Hurdle's words, right, Annie? Discernment for this year, to make sure that you're making the right decisions based on what your CVB needs, what your company needs, what you know of it, not just because it's the latest and greatest trend on what people should be doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. So one of the things that we've also been talking quite a bit about on this show is branding within vacation rentals. And I'm interested to hear your take on how branding has evolved within destination marketing over the years. Because I think at the end of the day, I mean, the brand is, if you have a strong brand and you build it up properly, I think it allows you not to have to be on, take that approach where you're just spread so thin and you're just involved in everything, but you're doing the right channels the right way. But I mean, how have you seen branding evolve in the last decade?
Well, branding is one of those loaded words that means something different to everyone, right?
True. Yeah.
Like you can talk to some more old school marketers, they still think branding is their logo and their style guide and their fonts and all of that. But branding is really much more of an experiential type of situation now. So I think the experience driven branding, how I've seen it really evolve with DMOs that I'm really proud of, is not getting stuck to a tagline being your branding or your images or your logos, but really evolving that, because branding needs to move just like a child growing up. They're not going to be interested in the same thing when they're 5, when they're 10, when they're 15, and so forth. So branding needs to evolve. And I see that happening. I see a lot of DMO brands starting to really embrace pop culture a lot more in their branding, which I think is very important. Annie, I think you tagged us in one of those. It was Helsinki. And it's kind of that, kind of that cheeky, sassy Wendy's, type of throwdown conversation. So I see the DMO branding really being more comfortable and less corporate and less measured about what they're saying. And I think that's what's really helping with the branding and evolving their community and branding so much more. So with vacation rental owners, they had been, again, doing that with hotels for so long, but really just kind of taking orders from the hotels. Now that vacation rentals not only save the industry with the occupancy, but also have opened up a lot of DMOs' minds to how to work with their smaller stakeholders, that they're just as important or can be more important. Same thing with shop local. Local businesses, mom and pops became hugely important, because of the pandemic. And I think thankfully so. So the branding now has extended to these smaller stakeholders in a lot of destinations where, the vacation rental owner, the shop owner, the restaurant owner is also embracing and marketing the holistic destination brand as well as their own.
Yeah, I think you've got it spot on there. I think branding is becoming more of, it's not just the outward tourist facing side of things. It is the local, people that live, the residents, and the stakeholders here. And we're seeing that because so many people are relocating to these big destinations relocation in Myrtle Beach over the last couple of years has been unbelievable. I mean, I think we're like the number 3, new home market in the country right now. So with all that, you've got new people moving here that they don't understand that the reason that they have these great restaurants and shops and everything else is because of tourism. I mean, tourism is 100% our lifeblood in the Myrtle Beach area, at least. But, making sure, that's a huge effort for us at Myrtle Beach CVB right now, is making sure that the residents understand that and that they also know, their participation in the brand is very important, and we want to make sure that we're representing their needs and their wants and why they moved here too. But it's a holistic view that I think is coming to fruition now more so than ever.
And I'm so glad you brought up residents, because that's something I didn't mention, but is I think profoundly important.
Yeah.
And of course, again, during the pandemic, destinations really embraced the residents and in talking to the residents and letting them know who they were, because they didn't, in most cases, most residents and even long-term residents don't get what a DMO is. What they do, they think it takes taxes out of their pocket.
Yeah.
So, that education piece for residents is supremely important. And I saw a lot of, destinations move into that. One of the situations, or one of the clients we worked with even pre-pandemic, was Flagler Beach in Florida. And they were worried about, they had, residents who'd been there a long time, their tourism was booming. They got a lot of flack about it. So we did an event and a brand activation, or a resident activation, if you would, for an event called Turtles, Tacos, and Tourism.
Oh, nice.
So the residents came out. It was this big block party. They had these, the turtles, because they have art installation of sea turtles, and they unveiled a new one. And then we had taco trucks, and we had, kiosks to play games of what they know about tourism and what tourists do for them.
Yeah.
A tacky tourist contest. So it was great.
Yeah.
And it really changed the minds of the residents. And I think things like that, embracing the residents, can be your best brand ambassador too.
Yeah. Or worse, right?
Or worse.
Because, they vote. And so that's very important to make sure that, they are on board with things. I think, events like that just makes sense. I mean, you've got to have them on your side, and the regulation side of everything for vacation rentals right now is certainly a hot topic for our industry. And there's a lot of destinations that, you get one bad, member on city council, or you get, too many residents that are against tourism, and, that can wreck an industry. Amy Highnote on one of our podcasts had said that she asked a manager, when are you going to decide to sell, or when is the time to sell? And they said, when the destination turns on you. And I thought that was a really poignant statement, because in a lot of the cases, it's like, we're seeing that happen, and it's just heartbreaking for people that have been in the industry for so long, but that, the rug is literally being pulled out from under them.
Yeah, I think a lot, especially from a destination standpoint, like 50% of the job is constantly political. And then 50% is probably kind of where you should be.
Yeah.
But you're right. One city council member, one really loud resident, something like that. So getting in front of that, and making so many cheerleaders around you, so that when that one squeaky wheel comes along, the squeaky wheel gets booted, not you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
What is your recommendation for just the vacation rental? If you were working with vacation rental owners or companies within a market, how would you tell them to best engage with their DMO?
So the first thing I would do if I owned a vacation rental in a new destination area is I would try to find out who the players are. Of course, you want to know your contacts there. Are there any partner events coming up that you can attend, or just reaching out, having coffee with them? Finding out. I would, as a vacation rental owner, first ask, what does the destination need? Like, I would ask them first, like, what do you need? Where are you marketing? Because most stakeholders come to destinations with, what can you do for me? Well, you're not booking for me. So they come with the wrong attitude, in my opinion. So I feel like coming in a place of service, because if you're offering to help the destination, they're going to be way more apt to think of you top of mind when promotions come up, when marketing campaigns come up.
Yeah. I think that, just having been in Panama City Beach when it went through its growth and went from hotel, to more vacation rental, lopsided to some degree until recently, there was so much animosity in the market, in that it was, I had been on the hotel side. So there was several hotel players that kind of controlled the purse strings, if you will, the decisions. They had all the people on the boards. And so when vacation rentals kind of flipped the script on them, I don't think that the destination didn't know what to do at the time, because it was just a big upheaval. But again, the animosity that ensued was just really, it was interesting to watch and be a part of, because again, I've always tried to be sort of the diplomat in the conversation of like, there's a solution for both of us. And I think that there was just this sense of like, well, the vacation rentals are sucking the business out of the hotels, and they're keeping us from being the success that we were, knowing that a lot of the hoteliers had actually sold their businesses to people that were building vacation rentals. So it wasn't like it was happening overnight and anybody pulled the rug out from under them. So I think there has to be a lot of PR that happens between those segments of business, and in some larger markets, I would think.
It is. And even in smaller markets too. But I think I've got to put that on. And I love my hotel industry partners. I've, worked with many different hotels, but I just have to be straight up about this. They didn't change their product fast enough to meet the demand. That's another reason that vacation rentals have really taken over, because everyone's tired of staying in the same four-wall hotel room since the 1950s.
Right. Yeah.
From a leisure perspective, it's their own fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. But it is interesting to see that the hotel segment is trying to dive headfirst into vacation rentals. I mean, you see Marriott with their homes and villas.
Oh yeah.
You know, I know our company, Lexicon, we're a channel manager. So we work directly with the channels, and we're working with them, and their team's been really great. But the one thing I will say is, again, the adaptation to what people really want was slower. And I think they're still trying to figure it out. They're still trying to understand how to serve up that type of product. They're trying to understand how to price that type of product. They're trying to understand how to message that type of product. So it's an evolution, but I think that there's minds on both sides of the conversation, that if everybody will meet in the middle and have a conversation, a true open conversation, there's no telling where you could take any destination with the collaboration between the two.
For sure. But I think what's not going to help that at all is just the consumer appetite of more authenticity. I mean, you have a younger audience who's not as big on, you've got to, if you look at your older audience, they want to respect the brand, know the brand. Okay, I'm always going to stay at a Marriott, for instance. So they're going to be more apt to the vacation rental inventory from someone like a Marriott. But most of, our generation and younger, we want to support local. We want to support something unique. We want a smaller, more authentic experience.
Yeah. And it goes back to that experiential travel. You're not getting that in a hotel. Now you might get that in a hotel resort in the Caribbean, where they can bring in some stuff, from outside the market that you are inclined to participate in, but definitely not in a hotel.
I think there's room for everybody, right? I mean, tourism is a massive industry in most markets, and I think there's reasons for why people visit, and when they need certain types of inventory to stay in, and when they need other types of inventory. But I know one thing our market has done really well, I think, in Myrtle Beach, is that we are very collaborative here. And we've kind of had to be, to be honest, in the way that our CVB is funded. There are stakeholders that are very important to the success of that, and we all work really hard to, make sure that we're able to get the funding that we need and build the programs to make our destination successful. But it's almost like the mentality we've adopted here is that we're not competing against each other. We're competing against all of us are competing against other destinations, and I think right now we're definitely seeing that. We see in Myrtle Beach that there's a shift. It seems like it's every other year. I swear, I don't have the specific statistics on this, but from what we've seen, this seems to be true, that a lot of our guests, they switch between going to the mountains and then they go to the beach, right? And we see, in Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, we have partner resorts that we work with up there, and we do see that from a high level, but that's tough. But embracing the local collaboration, I think, really helps. And then knowing that, okay, we need to be focusing our efforts on how can we be the destination of choice versus me competing against another vacation rental company down the street. That's not necessarily the best use of our time. The better use of our time is to collaborate and make Myrtle Beach the, destination of choice.
I totally agree. I think it's at the destination level where most of that competition really lies. But also I think, we've been talking about leisure, but there's a huge opportunity in what's evolving as the business traveler now. Yeah. That's where hotels really, really big flags really hurt too, was losing that, everyday business traveler, as, companies aren't putting you on the road as much. However, a business traveler is now being redefined by the remote worker, by the work anywhere kind of person. So that's a great opportunity for destinations and vacation rentals to come together and really think about the strategy for what does that remote worker, what does that evolving business traveler look like? And how can we be their choice?
Yeah.
And I was going to ask about that. How are you coaching your partners to embrace that work? Those people that are coming in for more than a vacation, they're coming in to be a resident, and whether it be for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. But sometimes, again, to Alex's point about people moving, I mean, Panama City Beach, they're building a Margaritaville development that is going to have 6,000 homes. And those are people that are relocating or owned vacation properties here and decided that they don't want to live in their oceanfront home. And so again, the type of traveler is evolving. So for you as a destination marketer, how do you help your partners navigate that?
Well, that's where destination marketing organizations have to think about collaboration within their area too, because now we've got residents or future residents. So they need to be collaborating with their city, with their EDC, with their Chamber of Commerce. So I've seen a lot more happen multi-agency, which usually doesn't necessarily happen in traditional destination marketing. But now is incumbent on a destination, because a destination does have a bigger brand to a potential visitor or potential resident than maybe the city or the chamber does. So they're going to land on that destination page, or they're going to find the visit, whatever page before the rest. So I'm advising my destinations to have that propensity that if you've got a visitor's guide, you've got a meeting planner guide, you need to have some sort of remote working, some sort of, remote worker guide or future resident guide, or, that sort of thing, because they need things that, a leisure traveler doesn't need. They need business services. They might need a place other than a Starbucks that they want to work. They might need fractional office. They might need, support for homeschooling. There's so many things that a remote worker could do. So for me, a destination has to be building out that library of how to help them.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Myrtle Beach is one of, I think, only 4 or 5 in the country that our chamber and CVB are one entity. And one of the other ones that is like that is North Myrtle Beach, which is actually where our office is located. So we have 2 CVBs that are also, there are CVB and a chamber DMO all in one. But it's interesting that there's not more that are like that, because I feel like our model works very well, but it does because it supports the resident side, the local business side through the chamber efforts, but they're working so closely with the destination that for us, it works great. But have you worked with any others like that in your experience?
There are some smaller ones that work out like that. Probably not at the Myrtle Beach level of a tier 1 destination, but in the smaller destinations. Allen Convention and Visitors Bureau is actually a department under the city.
Okay.
So they actually work really well, obviously, with the city and the EDC, and then they tap into the chamber when they need be. I think the chambers are the ones, the isolated chambers are really hurting.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Cause I mean, the shift in business and how people find local businesses has changed so much. I mean, you're not necessarily going to the chamber website. That used to be the way that people were using chambers, but they have to be more creative with their offerings. And I think the chambers that are excelling are doing that. But
for sure.
Yeah. Interesting. Where do you see, I know one of the challenges that DMOs and CVBs have obviously is being able to, report ROI back to their stakeholders. And that's a challenge because there are some that you can actually book properties right on the website. There's some programs that do that. We don't, but what are you seeing in your experience?
I'm glad you mentioned that one with that question in the beginning, because that has forever been the issue with destinations and what stakeholders think of them.
Yeah.
They think they're an OTA.
Right.
A destination will never be an OTA and shouldn't be put in.
It's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
If they happen to offer booking, that is just a courtesy. I would never consider that a main KPI.
Right.
And for ROI for destinations, I think that's shifted from a marketing perspective. Instead of looking at return on investment to return on advertising spend. So an ROAS is how I would look at it from a marketing perspective. For the top level, like business KPIs, that's something I think they have to rethink. So those KPIs to me would be more about collaboration. Like, what were you able to do? What kind of programs brought some impact that hadn't happened before? And I do like what Van Wango's doing out in the marketplace with the
that's the one I was thinking about, that it's kind of like a hybrid booking model, right?
Well, it's like a digital coupon.
Okay.
So you can track, we worked with them with a couple of destinations. So you can track people who sign up for it. They download the app, then they go redeem it at different local businesses. Those redemptions have kind of a dollar value associated with them. So there's some economic impact numbers that come out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to do it for sure. Because really, the DMO's role, what it should be, is to inspire travel, right? I mean, it's supposed to be to get, the wider net there of people that want to come to the destination. And I think it's easy to fall victim to, because we have to show ROI, or, a lot of people still want that they want to go down that route of, okay, we have to have the direct advertising programs that I can show you exactly how many clicks you got and this and that. But really, I think it's spinning wheels, because the DMOs are supposed to be there as the inspiration, to get the guests to choose our destination. Like we were saying earlier, that's the competition. It's other destinations. So
Right. And from an ROI perspective, I think it gets lumped. You mentioned clicks. So I like that you did that, because I think it gets all lumped together, and the average person can understand click. But what I think is important about breaking that out, I mentioned ROAS, but I think a lot of destinations are still challenging themselves, or still challenged with really being able to understand the difference between marketing, advertising, and public relations. And those all have different types of KPIs.
Yeah.
So where do you see, I guess, coming out of COVID, and people have really had to pivot their messaging and how they market their destinations. Where do you see things going this year, and beyond? I mean, do you think that there's going to be a monumental shift in how people are marketing destinations to be more all inclusive to multiple levels of travel, types of traveler, and accommodations? Or do you think that it's going to level off when things, I say, get back to normal, but we've been saying back to normal for a year now?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think that, unfortunate crisis brings about a lot of innovation, because you have to be innovative.
Right.
I see people already abandoning that. So what I'm afraid of for 2021, I think I wrote something about this on an article last year, but I feel like 2021 was kind of for lack of a better word, a thirst trap for travel, because it was naturally, there's pent up demand. So you're going to get people from all walks coming in 2021, still happening in 2022. At some point, because the economy moving too, and travel being a privilege and not a right, that's going to be our numbers in these 2 years, I think, are tricking us, to be honest with you. So I think there needs to be a long-term shift into innovation. And I'd already be looking at, what are we doing for 2025?
Yeah.
I'd be down the road in strategy if I were them.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things we talked about with Amy Hinote again was the lack of marketing that was being done in general, that people were so complacent because the demand was so overwhelming that they were like, well, I don't need to turn and my ad spend on. I don't need to do anything. And that they're not thinking that they're going to have to. And it's just, again, this, I look at some of the data that I see on my side of the conversation, and you look at the second half of this year and it starts to really drop off. And I don't know that people are prepared for that. So we've tried to coach people in that, it's fine to have your highest price out there and not be doing a lot of ads, but it's fine to not do anything. But if you're not out there at all of a sudden that funnel is going to turn off, and where are you going to be?
And I think, one thing that a lot of chamber or CVBs ran into in the pandemic was, I mean, literally, the money ran out, right? I mean, they didn't have money to advertise. I mean, they weren't going to be getting the accommodation taxes. They weren't going to be getting, the advertising programs there, but the COVID recovery, bills have really helped. That's something that this year, I think tourism is just going to be such a massive year in 2022. And I think a lot of that is because now these organizations, they have money to market again. And a lot of them didn't even have that in 2021. So, I mean, they were down and out for 2020 and 2021.
That's true.
We had enough reserves that we were able to keep marketing throughout the pandemic. We didn't stop anything for Myrtle Beach. And, there are some other CVBs that took the same course. And I think that really helped us, that we gained a lot of market share. And, for our company, Condo World, and we did the same thing. We followed what they did. We kept our marketing out there, and we gained market share because of doing that over Vrbo and Airbnb and Booking and the OTAs that weren't spending any money at that time. And, we had to change our messaging for sure, on both sides, on the chamber or CVB and Condo World. But keeping your message out there when others aren't there is probably the best tactic that you can get to gain market share.
Absolutely. And I think also to that point, when when COVID relief money came in, and destinations found themselves with more money, just like out of a crisis, like BP oil spill did with PCB, Annie, we working with them. When you get that influx, the natural reaction is, okay, let's get this big campaign together. But that's not savings, right? That's just going out and spending. So then what happens when that's gone? And just like we talked about, those trends start to shift. Like I would look a lot more, and talking out of the other side of my mouth, since I am an advertising agency, but I would actually put the money more into strategic development and community and content and organic.
Right.
It's going to last a lot longer.
It's interesting. Just on that note, like they've put out some numbers from some of the smaller destinations along the Panhandle here, and some of the ones like Gulf and Franklin County that are these little destinations, and they generally don't have any money to spend, so they just always are part of like the larger Great Northwest or the Northwest Florida co-ops or Visit Florida. But they had 70% increase in their bed taxes, so all of a sudden they're looking at a windfall of $2 million in bed tax. Then what do we do with it? Well, the problem is, like you said, they're likely going to spend it all without a plan, and then come 2 years from now when that funnel's turned off, they have no money and no plan in place for the longevity of growing that. And so it is an interesting situation that I think some of these smaller destinations are in. And if they're not engaging an agency like yours, whether it be big or small, they're going to find themselves in a bad state.
Right. Yeah. And I would say that's like lottery winners. Like how many of them end up broke?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the problem with that. That's why I think, for us, of course, we offer advertising, but we really offer the strategic direction, which I think is more like putting some money in your savings account, rather than spending that cash or putting it on your credit card.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
On that note, I'd love to give it a try to blow lottery money, but I just haven't won the lottery yet. So
Yeah. I've got a question for you, Jennifer. You had recently put out an article talking about DMOs and their role in the metaverse and virtual tour operators. Can you talk a little bit about that? I think it's super interesting, and I know it's something that we're looking into and planning here, but just would like your take on it.
Yeah, so this is my new big, I'm a crazy person, I'm wearing the tinfoil hat, but I'm telling you, this is going to be the drum that I bang all year, because the metaverse isn't new. It's just new because we heard about it from Mark Zuckerberg, but the metaverse isn't new. The Oculus and virtual reality has been around for a long time. Gaming, if your kids play Roblox or Fortnite, that's all the metaverse. So we are going to be consuming more and more, especially with the younger generation, virtual content. For me, it's more the question than the answer. And that's why when I put that together, instead of saying, here's the trend, you have to do it, I'd rather put the thought in people's mind of, how do we consider this? So from a metaverse standpoint, if a destination is really defined by boundaries and bed tax, how the heck are they going to play in a virtual world? So maybe those are, for me, some ideas at Spark is, I want to visit New York in the 1920s. Is that a paid by coin kind of virtual experience that a destination can produce? Mm-hmm. So those are some of the, like I said, more questions than answers, but I think that's where, they should start playing, is thinking about gamifying the travel experience. You're never going to take away regular travel, but augmenting it, because that makes not just maybe some income, but another marketing channel for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. My son and my husband do virtual reality, Star Wars and some of those games. It's crazy to think that you could let I don't know. I just don't know that I could let myself go into a virtual world, because I'm like I'm tactile. I need to feel it and touch it. And, I need the wind in my face. And maybe that's where this will all evolve to, is
it does
blow at you, but
we'll send you a fan.
Right.
There's definitely developments in that for the experience of, a more physical experience as well as a mind experience happening. But that's where I think, people who are interested in different times or experiences that don't happen in a destination anymore. Yeah. That's why I mentioned, like time travel is possible if we get it together in the metaverse.
Well, it'd be interesting to see. And I think I worry about like the destinations that I haven't been able to get to in Europe, and things that are happening with global warming and stuff being, eroding away, and things that we'll never get to experience. And I think that's exactly where, for me, that experience, that metaverse would be really beneficial. I would want to go experience all these things that probably aren't going to exist by the time I get to go, the time to go do it.
Right. But I also think it's a potential precursor, because if you go there, I mean, what do people always say? You have to go there in the mind before you go there physically anyway. So those can be, during the pandemic, I'm not sure if you guys saw or not, but Amazon was actually a big retailer for virtual tour operators. And they did it in real life. So you had a real person there, you could buy a tour and have that experience. So I still think those are precursors, whether it's virtual reality, metaverse, or, a guided tour that you're watching on YouTube. Those are all marketing precursors.
Well, you think about it. I mean, the inspiration phase before you go on vacation, even if it's not to that level, you're going back to that website, you're looking at the pictures, you're looking at the videos. I know I do that. So it's like, that's the buildup. And that's so much, that's such a big part of guest experience, and just the experience of vacation in general. And I think the brands that are doing it well right now, that, especially vacation rentals, a lot of our guests, they're booking 6 to 12 months in advance. I mean, these are big condos and they're bringing a lot of people with them. So this is a lead up there, but how are you communicating with them from the time of booking to when they get there? And what information are you keeping in front of them to keep them excited about coming? That also helps to, minimize cancellations, right?
And
You're
that levels up the whole experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the metaverse stuff is just to the nth degree, but
Well, I don't think the metaverse is going to replace, but just like, when we were, pushing DMO websites before OTAs even got big. I mean, Expedia, it existed, but no one really knew who it was when the DMOs first got in the market.
Right.
But they didn't want to get in the market. So guess what? They lost a big opportunity with OTAs coming in, which redefined their place in the market versus someone like an OTA. That's what I see about the metaverse is it's going to happen. They're going to develop. Some kid in Silicon Valley is going to make a virtual Las Vegas if Las Vegas doesn't.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's only a matter of time. And that's where I say it's probably going to be tinfoil hat me talking about this, just like I did in the 90s about websites.
Yeah.
But I think if you don't, it's going to be snooze or lose. Someone else is going to do it. So you might as well own your brand.
Yeah. It's better to be an early adopter, get in there first and try it than wait, be on the sidelines. Well, Jennifer, we appreciate you being here so much today. And I think we just want to wrap up with what's one piece of advice that you would give to destination marketing organizations for 2022. If there's one piece of advice, what would it be?
Stay curious.
Oh, I love that.
I love that.
Yeah. Well,
I think that sparks everything else. I think if you stay in the mind of curiosity, then you never get bored. You're always learning and you're always opening yourself up for calculated risk.
It's that growth mindset, right? I mean, growth mindset, curiosity is a big part of that you want to continuously keep learning.
Absolutely.
And you got to be curious to learn. So that's great advice. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. We're going to have we've got Stuart Butler coming on the show here soon. And we want to really branch out and get some more destination marketing professionals like yourself on here to talk about these issues, because I think they're really timely and important for our industry and just travel in general. But we appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.